So our last speaker is going to be Kristen DiAngelo, who is a community organizer, a political activist, educator, and an expert witness. She is the co-founder, the executive director of SWOP Sacramento. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you so much for having me, Maxine. Okay, I am unmuted. And I would like to talk today about, we've heard a lot about how they deal with prostitution and sex work today in this age. We're criminalized, obviously, and even those industries that are technically legal, because the majority of sex work is technically legal, they're still not treated fairly. They're still not given the same voice as all the other workers out there. And so we've heard a lot about what isn't working. And what I want to do is I want to talk about what is and what you can do to help us. So Claire, I have some slides, and I was going to have you start on the 4th slide. Can you put up the 3rd slide? Because there are 4 ways that we deal with sex work in the United States or around the world. And the 4 ways, the 4 models that they use are criminalization, our model here, throw us in jail, take away our rights, do all that kind of stuff. Then there is what we call asymmetrical criminalization, which is where nowadays there are some really cute phrases such as in demand or the Nordic model. But what it really means is they're going to arrest the male side of the equation, the customer side of the equation, not always a male, but the majority of time. And this is a model that the United States has been moving toward. We see a lot more what we call client stings. It's not a new model. It's been around since I was a kid. I too have been in the sex trade over 40 years. And I myself am a survivor of trafficking. I lost almost a decade of my life. And so when people tell me like, oh, you're a consensual sex worker, we can understand why you wouldn't want, to be criminalized. I'm like, no, I was criminalized as a somebody who was engaging in forced labor. I was criminalized at that point in my life, and it did not work for me. So they, even when I was a kid and now, they tend to look of ways to keep the criminalization going. And one of the ways is to say that they want to criminalize the clients. In theory, what that means is it decreases demand. So the supply will decrease, sort of like saying that if we get rid of the clients, that the workers will all disappear. We no longer need food. They also believe that if they get rid of sex work, if they get us off the streets, off the internet, off the poles, out of the massage parlors, if they make us disappear from that kind of meaningful employment, we will find other meaningful employment in their world, as if we fit in their world, or we want to be in that world. They also believe that will end trafficking, that as long as we decrease the demand, we get rid of the client side of the equation, the trafficking will just disappear. Forced labor will disappear if we arrest the clients. And in this model, they believe we're all victims. The problem is all of those don't really work in real life application. Number one is when you decrease demand, it creates a buyer's market, which means they get to negotiate the terms, and people who are working no longer get to do that. The clients are scared. So what that means is the workers take more risk. We negotiate down our security screening in order to continue seeing clients, to continue to survive. We end up charging lower rates. The reason we charge lower rates is because clients who have privilege will go other places. If they go other places to find us, we are left with the people who can't do that in the area. So what happens is you have more people out there working and less clients. So that means that we begin competing and we begin to negotiate the prices down. Where clients stop allowing to be screened. They won't pay deposits because they don't want anything tracked to them because they are no longer safe. One of the biggest things that I'm against with the Nordic model, or asymmetrical criminalization, which is, I believe, what we should call it, is that okay, wait, what was I going to say? Is that when this happens, I can't even think of where I am. Oh, our support services and nonprofits can be charged with a crime for helping the workers when this happens. Okay, and what I mean by that is we try to help the workers like, okay, we'll go over here where it's safer, do this or do that. Well, that in itself becomes a crime. So we can no longer instruct people on how to stay safe. So asymmetrical criminalization does not work overall. They think it does, it doesn't. It isn't new, it's been going on for a long time. Can we go to the next slide? I'm trying to rush through this. I know I only have so long, so I'm going fast. I'm sorry, I know I should slow down. Another way we talk about is legalization. Legalization, I have worked in a legal environment. I've worked in a criminalized environment. I've never worked in any other type of environment, only legalized and decriminalized. Legalized worked for me. It doesn't work for the majority of the models. When we talk about legalization in the United States, we talk about brothels because that's how we've seen it in Nevada, which means that most of the workers have to give away a lot of their money to the structure that they're under. In order to work in a legalized environment, you have to get a work card from the police department, which means the police are the gatekeepers of who works and who doesn't. It also allows for discrimination of minorities. In all the years I worked up in the brothels, one of the things that we saw all the time was that they had what you call a product mix. They want to make sure that the brothel brings in the most money possible, which means they pick the people they believe will bring in the most money. It was actually a very widely talked about practice, even up to recently, because I've been up there talking to them, in that each brothel will only have one Black woman working, one Hispanic woman working, one woman who may have extra weight on her working. They take and try to keep the majority of the workers blonde, Asian, redhead, thin, those stereotypes that our media has portrayed of what beauty is. They try to make that what the mixture is in that brothel. Well, what does that mean? That means the majority of people of color will never work in a brothel. That means the majority of people who could work are not allowed to work. What does that mean? That means the majority are still criminalized because they're going to work outside of the structure. So if the majority is still criminalized, we really haven't achieved anything. I was being trafficked when I was in a brothel. Legalization did nothing to help me. I never would have said anything. It had nothing to do whether I was being exploited or not. There are other reasons that this isn't good. There's segregation that happens in the brothels. Most of the time they're zoned for where they can be, and that usually isn't where dense populations are. So the majority of brothels are away from where people live. What that means is mothers have to leave their children in order to work in them. Many of them are lockdown facilities. So when you go in, you are not allowed to leave until your tour is up. So many times back then we were locked down 3 weeks. I hear the lockdown facilities today, they still exist, are 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks you're locked in there. So that means you're 2 weeks without your kids. You're 2 weeks without your family. You're 2 weeks without any support, anything that you need. And many times those brothels aren't in a town or city or state that you live in. So you have to leave home in order to do that. And one of the biggest things when we talk about legalization is that it is legalized statewide. It is not legalized federally. So back when I was there, and still today, the feds would come in with dogs, they would raid us, they would throw us up against the walls, they would tear through our stuff in order to harass us. So legalization for me is not a good model. Number one is most of us don't want to go to the police who we've suffered abuse and rape and many things from in order to ask permission to work. That shouldn't happen. Can you go on to the next slide, Claire? So we talk about decriminalization, and a lot of people think that means that, you know, you just run around and do whatever you want. Okay. What that means is that we want our labor to be like everybody else's labor. Teachers aren't criminalized. Lawyers aren't criminalized. Doctors aren't criminalized. none of the labor industries that we hear about so often are criminalized. That's all we want. We want to be able to work, and we want everybody to be able to work. We want our most marginalized people to be able to work. We want our people of color to be able to work, our trans workers to be able to work. People, no matter what like socioeconomic status they come from, no matter what neighborhood they come from, no matter where they live, we want them to work with sometimes the only tool that they have available, which is very often their body, and to be able to do it in the safest possible manner so that they can earn a living, they can become a contributing member of society, and they can do that safely with the support of society and culture around us. Okay, so how does that happen? That happens by repealing the prostitution laws, repealing the loitering with intent laws. That happens by the community standing up and saying that this has gone too far, that we should be able to have autonomy over our own bodies. Can you go to the next slide, Claire? So what I'd like you to do, and we've heard so many amazing people on here, is to really get involved, to really take action, not just to, you know, write one letter or say, oh yeah, I believe in that. Like, take action. And there are many ways you can. If you go to the stoptheraids.org website, you will see that all of us have our websites on there, and you can donate to us. Why do you need to donate to us? Because we are doing this work, many of us, for free. We work long hours, we work hard, we are targeted, and yet we have no funding or little funding. And we're working against, you know, power. We are standing up against power who has large amounts of funds. And for us to do this, we have to be able to support ourselves and support the actions that we need to take in order to decriminalize sex work. Get involved. How do you get involved? Contact the organizations, donate your time, donate your expertise, and have a voice. We talked about sending out letters to people. The other thing you could do is, you'll see here on this slide that I've listed the Twitter handles of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, the Los Angeles County, and George Gascon's, the District Attorney's Office. Okay, we want them to hear from you with the tag Stand with Sex Workers and Super Bowl LVI 2022. I have it all on there. Take a picture of it with your phone. When we get off this, tweet them. Tell them you're tired of this shit too. Tell them you're tired of the funds going to police intervention, criminal intervention, instead of services for the most marginalized people that have them. Okay, thank you.